All right, welcome to the Stampscapes lab. We're going to color this glossy, almost half page composition here, a stamp sketch. And I'm going to do it in with kind of a spring type of spirit. Okay, one of the things I learned in art school is that you give kind of your pieces a good way to start them, I should say, is to give them when you're starting off with like a blank canvas, just or a white piece of paper, on your sketch pad or whatever. When you're going to do some sort of composition, you gotta give things a general kind of base coat of colors. So if you're working in oil paints, you're going to do it in oil paints. This happens to be a dye-based scene, so I'm going to do it in a dye-based color. It doesn't necessarily have to be that, but you want to give some sort of base coat, kind of richness, and this will provide a really good foundation, just so you're not starting off with just a bare piece of paper, and very stark. Okay, and typically those things that we would do is we would go with a light, warm tone. So it'd be like a sepia or oh, what were some of the others? Foundation colors. Oh, I don't know. Just the general brownish tinges. Okay. I'm trying to think of that other kind of warm tone that everyone used. Yeah, I forgot. Not important, but you can see it's just kind of a general, very light tone. Some of the really good ones to go with. I mean, there's light colors in every line of inks, but the Distress Ink line has some really good aged-looking ones. The old paper, walnut stain, antique linen, those types of colors like that. Okay, I happen to be using a peach Bellini here. It's a very light tone. Okay, so I've kind of established some lights and darks in here. There's kind of a lighter horizon right in here where I didn't tone in. And there's just kind of a couple places in here that I've left it fairly light. But this is a very light tone here. You can see I'm picking up some of the black from the impressions themselves. This was stamped out a couple days ago, so it's really dry, so it's not smearing anywhere. But again, I am picking up some of that tone, so, that happens in here. Keep that in mind. But our lights and darks are kind of established in here. Now, I mean, we can alter them still. It's not like, oh my God, I just colored that in. That was going to be a light area. Now it has to be dark. It's not like that. But let's move on. So let's move through some additional brown tones here for my trees. A couple of my trees didn't, like right in there. I don't know, this tree right here on my tree trunk trio wasn't stamping out. I think I have some dried stays on ink on it. I need to clean my stamps out one of these days. Okay, so we're going a little bit darker, and I'm going with the brown right here. Okay, use whatever, ink applicator you want. I happen to think that paper towels are a pretty good way to go because they're very absorbent and they are meant to absorb moisture. Okay. There are some types of things like they market them as ink applicators or ink blending tools, but they're really makeup brushes and they're designed for dry media. So inks are wet, so it kind of has the opposite effect or concept of what people are going for. They just look really cool, though. I'll give you that. But it's kind of the wrong applicator in many ways because it doesn't absorb. It wicks moisture away from your tool. It's not absorbent, so that you don't have as much media to apply. Okay. So keep that in mind. But if those are working for you, it's good for certain types of applications. But for kind of larger, kind of wider slatherings of media, you know, experiment around with things, you know, something a little bit more absorbent, like a, you know, sponge or something like that. All right. So see this right here, I'm kind of varying my tones a little bit. Yeah, let's get a little bit more of this tone up top here. Now I'm starting to kind of smear my imagery. I can see it a little bit right there. See that? I don't know. Maybe that first tone kind of wet the ink a little bit. But I'm not worried about it because, you know, we have a lot of colors to go. And we're going to be putting in some extra foliage hanging down from here. Okay, I'm not necessarily doing this to make this ground area brown. This is going to be like a spring type of thing, so there's going to be a lot of greens over that. But again, this is almost serving like a foundation color itself. Yeah, I mean, it's darker than, you know, a really light tone, but you know, we're going to be going over it in certain areas. Again, on the tree trunks, we're not going to be going over it, you know, in a lot of greens or anything like that. But this is a pretty dark brown right here, and we'll put it down at on the forest floor as like a kind of like a shadow effect. I might even make some of the tree a little bit lighter and some of it a little bit darker. I'll have my lighting coming from the interior, kind of the middle of the scene. So on the tree trunks, on the right side, I'll make the left side so I'm a little bit lighter. So that will kind of reiterate the lighting scheme of the scene. You know, in terms of it, you know, the light coming from kind of more centered like that. Okay, now one of the things I'm going to be doing on this scene too is alcohol inks work really fantastic with water-based inks as kind of a like a topping, you know. It's going into the scenes that have been colored with water-based, you know, with some dyes right over, alcohols right over the top of them. But we'll get it kind of established with the dye inks first, because the dye inks don't apply and stick to alcohol ink very well, but the alcohol will stick to the water base with no problem. Okay, you see where we're getting pretty dark right here with this brown, like that. I'm going to make my perimeter of my scene a little bit darker as well. It's called vignetting. Okay, so kind of especially like the four corners. All right, that is that. That might be the end of our browns. Well, I'll use this applicator here. Let's go into black as well. Let's make it a little bit more contrasted, okay? So we're using black, which is the same color that we stamped out our impressions with. So kind of has a really good unifying effect when you use the same color to shade with as the colors as the color that you stamped out your main imagery with. Well, most of the times it's going to be black, but sometimes you might just use a, you know, a dark brown or something like that, or I don't know. I don't know. 98% of the time it's going to be black. Okay. So it's kind of funneling the viewer's eye in a little bit more into the interior when you darken the perimeter like that. All right, so that is black. Let's try to apply some of our greens right here. And I don't know if I'm going to go into this bright of a green, but you Yeah, something like that as far as a range of tones go. This one's probably a little bit lighter. So you just kind of work from light to dark. All right. And you can use that same process or concept using whatever type of media you're working with. It doesn't have to be dye-based inks. You just kind of line your colored pencils or something like that, or your Copic markers, whatever, from light to dark, and you just work from your lightest tones and incrementally through your darker ones. Okay, so this is a celery, so kind of a light green, you know, doesn't it? These are Marvy pads, doesn't have to be Marvy pads, of course. But again, I'm doing kind of a layered dye-based ink process right here in this particular card. So just any kind of dye-based ink, you know, in this type of process right here. Yeah, you see it kind of bringing it to life already, huh? That tone in there. It's pretty bright. Or not bright, but it's a warm tone, okay? Let's go into some of these trees here too. Now, that cabin should be a little bit more brown too, but this isn't a really great, you know, tool to get that exact. So that's going to be better served coloring with a, you know, alcohol marker or just a marker in general. See, the more you add, too, you can get a brighter version of whatever color you're working with just by going with a stronger application of it. Okay. I am going to come up to my trees with a little bit of this green. I think it looks pretty good. Maybe not with the darkest of greens, though. Or, I don't know, maybe not even the mid-tone greens. But there you have it, just with one color of green so far. Dare I go this bright? Let's go ahead and let's see what it does. Maybe I won't go with a full saturation of this light green here. This light green is very, very bright. It's one way to really brighten up your cards is by using this green right here. So even if you don't have a bunch of Marvy green pads that are really bright, you can add, like say for example, a light Marvy green like this into the mix and, you know, into one of the layers, and that's going to brighten up all of your colors, you know, from other companies that aren't quite as bright and saturated. If you're going to do that pretty soon, because the Marvy inks have been discontinued, okay? They're still out there, though. I don't know which ones are available. But you still have quite a few available. A lot of things like the real popular colors, black, and like the light blues, those ones are probably sold out at, you know, whoever's selling them. But one place that sells them is just right off the Marvy website. Okay. A lot of people say, hey, where do you get, you know, certain things? Most manufacturers have websites that you can buy things off of, especially in the crafting industry. So if you're looking for something from whatever, making up a name, North American Stamps, rubber stamps. You look up North American rubber stamps, you know, and they'll have a website. Usually. I don't know, some might have just like a Facebook account, but most manufacturers have like an e-commerce site. Or they'll have a listing of places that carry their line. Okay, so getting a little bit brighter here. I think that was a jungle green. Yeah. let's go these two right here. This is a pine green. This is getting pretty saturated right down here, but so sometimes I'll tap like that to get a little bit of a stronger saturation of ink onto the surface, because sometimes wiping it like that, you're kind of wiping ink off at this point in time because the surface is getting so moist. Again, trying to hit some of this darker tone right in that corner right there. There we go, like that. Let's differentiate this little slope right here a little bit by making this back slope a little bit darker like that. So you go, that kind of illuminates this one right here. Okay, there we go. Bottle green, one of the darkest greens out there on the market. Super, super rich. Okay, that's pretty dark right there. It's also kind of staining a little bit faster, so kind of apply, you know, certain colors a little bit slower. In other words, don't kind of move it around too much, like kind of stay in an area and don't re-ink it quite as often, you know, just because you don't need to. And also the page is getting a little bit moist, so you're not applying as much ink off of your applicator. This is like, this paper towel is like finger painting right here. You have really, you know, good control over finger painting usually. You know, because it's like, you know, it's an extension of yourself like that. Look at that right there. Some pretty nice bright tones in there. My cabin's looking a little anemic now because it doesn't have any tone on it or color. So, but we'll remedy that. Okay, so this green in here, it's looking a little bit too vibrant. So one of my tricks is that I go back in with some of my brown tones and I make those greens look a little bit more earthy, okay? So I'll come back right over the top of them and we'll apply more of this, okay? This brown. If we need to go to the darker brown, we'll do that too. But you see this kind of aged brown right here? It's a little bit more earthy of a tone than just say a straight kind of really vibrant green in there, okay? You still kind of get the richness of the hue in here, but it's just a little bit more mellow. It's not as hot of a green. So this right here, and you go like that. So it's like I said, it's a little bit more earthy looking, like that. Okay, so let's see. I'm kind of tempted to put a little bit of tone in my sky. Now you might think it's kind of weird, but let's go with a blue up in this area. I'm going to see if I have some of a really light blue hue here. There's gray, London 5. I'm seeing if I have it in a re-inker form. Here's a really light blue here. The Tumbled Glass Distress is a really great one. This one's Salvia Blue from Marvy. It's a pretty neutral blue. The Tumbled Glass, I think, has a slight warmth to it. I like it, but I know I'm out of it in terms of my re-inker here. Yeah, I don't have any Tumbled Glass. Okay, well, let's see how this goes right here, okay? So blue like this, and we're just going to go, well, let me see. Let me wipe some of it off just to get a little bit of my bearings here, okay? So here's some blue like that. And we'll just tone in, but like that. And bring some of it down into your greens as well. Looks like something like that. It's almost changed the mood of the piece a little bit, huh? Okay. Now let's add in some extra foliage in here. I'm going to do that right now because the next step is to add in some alcohol inks, and I want to add this in at this point in time, just, because it's going to be an easier impression job, stamping over water-based like inks as opposed to something kind of, very different. We're going to go with the black dye-based ink right here. You can go with something a little bit stronger sometime. Sometimes I like to use like a thicker style of ink, like I don't know, the VersaFine Clear is going to dry on here very well. But, something like that. Sometimes your foreground imagery really stands out because it's a little bit of a thicker ink over the top of, thin dye-based inks. Okay, we're going to go for quite a few impressions here. I'm kind of holding my stamp down for a little bit of time before I lift it up because this surface up here is fairly moist, so I'm stamping a moist impression into a moist surface. So sometimes that ink doesn't transfer as fast as, as if we're stamping on a dry piece of paper. Dye-based inks work by staining your surface. So it's kind of, what we're doing is kind of we're adding in kind of like a canopy of leaves from these trees here. Yeah, these are pine trees probably, but they could be anything. Okay, I'm going for black, but I think I might do multiple toned overhangs here, so I might go with some greens as well. But it'll be a dark green though. You kind of have to go with black though, in a lot of it. Just like a light, a dark green alone, it might not have enough kind of body to it and visual weight, but it looks great as kind of like a secondary color in there. So I'll add it in there so see that it's a fairly dense canopy of leaves up there. I'll go with the bottle green and we'll see what that looks like. I'll start it off in kind of the corners here. And I'll see if I like it, and if I do, which I do, I'll add a few more, or a lot more. You just kind of let your eye be the judge of it as you do this. All right, so see there's, some black and green up there. It looks a little bit more maybe rich of a, whatever, textural statement. All right, now let's get into some other tones in here. So I've gone with some greens and some brown tones. You notice in my alcohol inks, I'm kind of choosing the same color scheme here. Okay, so here's some brown tones. It's kind of light, medium, dark, like that. Right here, it's kind of light, medium, and dark. I mean, I don't know if I'll use all of these, but that's kind of the example, just kind of in general of what I do here. So see this little narrow trunk right here, that's not, it's not conducive to color with something like this. You can't get in that exact little area, but you can, with a marker like this. Okay. And we're just adding some, I need to watch out for some of these impressions up here. They're a little bit moist still. So the alcohol and dye-based inks, the water-based inks aren't going to mix, but if these things are still super wet, you're going to drag that kind of puddle, So just keep that in mind. You can heat set if you want to, to kind of expedite things if you need to. we'll give some of this brown tone right here, and as you kind of glaze a transparent color right over the top of your dye-based inks, it gives it a really rich look. Look at those trunks like that. Look how much body they have, you know, with an additional layer of transparent media over the top of it. Now, if you need to, you know, as you're applying, you know, this color in here, if you need to, you can kind of blend it out. You can take your blender pen or just blend with another pen, you know, with your alcohol ink down here, like in the shadows. All right, let's see here. Let's go into our cabin right here and give that cabin a little bit more body and, you know, color scheme richness like that. So the side of the cabin like that. Let me go to a lighter kind of tannish brown. Oh, I don't know if I have one. Here's a brownish gray. Here's a little bit of a warmer tinge right here for that roof. It's like way too yellow, but I'll knock it back with some of this brownish gray right here, you know, going in that rooftop like so. And some of these windows, I'll get a little bit of color in them like so. Go into these trees with some of this brownish gray. You think of brownish gray on the trees? What? Well, we're going to layer them, you know, with a little bit of a hue. Here's a really bright green like this. Get some of that down in that grassy area underneath. Okay, and we can kind of bring in a little bit of a brightness into our whatever, the forest floor, like that. Look at that richness as we just, you know, you just keep kind of building things up like that, and things get rich, and they look more three-dimensional, you know, potentially. It's possible to just keep adding, and you know, it's like richer, 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 and then you know, slowly, if you keep adding and adding, it could get muddy, muddy, muddy. I do that all the time. My cards get muddy just because I go overboard a little bit, but I'll show you how to, you know, remedy that, and how to bring back a lot of crispness and richness as far as textural qualities go. Okay, a little bit of green in this tree again. It's like moss on the tree or something, maybe. I spray seal my scenes after I'm done too with an acrylic spray. Sometimes the dye-based inks and the alcohol inks built up on here, that they have kind of like a different textural quality too sometimes, but just spraying them will introduce a lot more depth and richness. Just really easy, just like one spray. I'd highly recommend doing that on all of your pieces. Okay, here's a little bit of a lighter green. It's kind of removing some of my ink in here, but look at that. It's kind of like a warm tone. It's kind of fun to be able to manipulate your colors and actually remove some of them. I'm not removing it like an eraser. I'm kind of doing it strategically in here. You know, so I removed a little bit of tone like that and kind of gave it a little bit of an interior glow. All right, let's add some of it down here like this, maybe. How about some of these trees back here? All right. We're pretty dark brown right here. Let's go in and add. So it doesn't look too dark. It's a little bit darker than maybe what's already on there. It's a really kind of rich, kind of reddish brown. All right, so see that brown in there. It doesn't kind of blend very well. So again, you just go in with the, like a lighter tone. I know this one's going to be like a green. It doesn't have to be green. It could be a brown or something like that you kind of blend with. But let's go in there like this and just kind of blend that darker tone in a little bit. It's almost like, excuse me, it's almost like you're dissolving ink and kind of moving it around. It feels like, in some ways, it's like an iron or something like that, and you're working with, wax, like an encaustic or something like that. That's what it feels like to me, almost. Like it'd be like a really thin layer, though. Okay, here's a little bit more of that brown. This is one of the previous browns, not the last brown that I used. Or is it? I don't know. I think the other brown that I used was this one right here. Let me see. Blending in a little bit. Let's go in lighter. Let me find that grayish brown. My grayish brown is a little bit dry, but it's doing the trick. You have to kind of go with the moist one to kind of spread things around a little bit more, but maybe having it a little bit slightly drier is kind of, doing the trick. It's not melting the media so much. All right, let me try something like this in the trees too. I'm looking at these trees. I want them to get a little bit brighter in some areas. I'll go and I'll brighten them up with the paint pens too, but if you can kind of get it in a very quick way with another medium, might as well do that. All right. It's a pretty bright color scheme going on like that. All right, so trying to decide if there's any other colors that I want to do in here. I don't think there are. Maybe this green right here. Let's take this little blue right here. This blue, I'm going to put that into the windows right here. Like the windows are kind of reflecting the colors of the sky. It's very subtle. It's like a really super, super pale blue. And then here's a kind of a dull kind of pastel green. I thought I could do a little bit more blending down here. I like to typically blend with a color, like a lighter color of whatever I'm blending, rather than just straight blender pen, clear. But I mean, sometimes I will use a clear, but it's usually just a lighter version of the color, like I said, of the hue that you're blending. Okay, it'll be like one of the lighter versions of it that I have. So in this case, this is one of the lighter greens that I happen to have. Okay, let's get to some paint pens here. Let me pause right here and I'll grab some paint pens. Okay, range of paint pens here. They're either the 3mm kind of fairly thick ones, or the 0.7mm. These ones all come out of the Artistro 42 color set. You're saying, well, violets. I mean, what are you doing in there? That's not within the color scheme. But I think I'm going to put like a carpet of some bluebells down here. And you know, these are the greens that are kind of already in here. You know, we have this tan. You know, it's like a lighter version of the browns, and then a large and small white paint pen. Paint pens. All right, let's see. Let's add in some highlighting down here in the meadow. Okay, so these are going to represent something that's fairly light. So you can see the lighter areas on these little slopes like that. That's kind of where I'm adding this in. I want to add this in areas that are just a little bit darker than that color right there, okay? I don't know if I shook this up enough. It might be a little bit more translucent than I want right now, but we'll see. Okay, so that being said, what you see, you know, after the immediate kind of application of it, doesn't really stay. It dries darker than what it looks like when it's been freshly applied. I can't get in too close, apparently. My camera starts going a little out of focus. Sorry about that. But I apply this where kind of light meets dark. And what this is kind of representing right now is these little dots are representing kind of highlighting. I like to give my grass kind of a nice shimmer, like light is hitting it, okay? So you can see that where there's a little bit of light area right in there. So you kind of add this right around that. And then you kind of, you know, you create a little bit more distance in between. In this case, these little dots in the darker areas. As I touch my card right here, it's like my finger sticks to it because the stickiness of the, the tackiness of the alcohol inks. When they dry, it's not going to be like that. But it's not going to be, you know, this tackiness isn't so wet it's going, you know, you're not going to smear any alcohol inks. You know, they're firmly affixed there. But it just, like I said, until it's like completely dry, it has that tacky feeling. All right, so see that right there? You get that kind of glistening. Kind of brings that area to, you know, these areas to life, doesn't it? It kind of makes it come alive. Now we have these green trees in here. So see this, you know, the sides of the tree that are a little bit lighter, or you know, wherever it's, you know, there's no set spot that you have to put it in, but typically it's on the top sides of trees if your scene is being top lit, so the lighting is coming from above somewhere. In this case, it's kind of coming like right in there in that horizon. So like on this side of the tree, I'll illuminate it more, or a little bit more, than say the other side of the tree, which is not facing the light. This is where these scenes really start to kind of shimmer and come to life for me in terms of kind of a lighting statement. So just even that one color, I mean, even if it's just this one pen, I think that would be pretty good. Let's add in, let's go a little bit warmer. Let's see how this looks here. This is a yellow. I think I have a couple different values of yellow. Yeah, here's a little bit of a dull yellow. Maybe that would be better. I don't know. I'll go with the dull one first. It's still a little bit lighter, I think, than this color right here. I mean, it's not too much lighter. They're both kind of pastel versions of, you know, their hue. Yellow and green. Yeah, quite a bit lighter. All right, see that? Yeah, looks pretty good. Down here in the meadow too. So that kind of warm light. Like that. Let's go with some of this green again. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some of this green on a couple of these leaves up here. I'll just do a really light application on a couple of these leaves up here. It just gives them a little something in common with, you know, what's going on down below. Like that. I didn't put, you can't really see it as much, okay? Like I said, I could just kind of put a little dab, you know, in here. It looks like it's kind of, you know, disappearing pretty quickly. It's getting, you know, it's drying darker, but you can kind of see it a little bit, that little slight shimmer, okay? All right, let's go to, do I go to the white like this? Let's give it a try. Okay, those kind of those trees really kind of shimmering and, you know, kind of looking 3D. All right, let's add in, let's experiment around a little bit and let's add in some bluebells. You can type in Stampscapes bluebells and you can see my other kind of experiments with that. I think that was probably about a year ago. I was doing some bluebell scenes. Now, I would have kind of given this a little bit of a violet tinge down here probably if I was doing like a perfect, you know, really big carpeted, you know, kind of bluebell, you know, themed scene. I don't know. But on this one right here, I just wanted to go really fast and, you know, lay down a lot of those green tones in there. Okay, so see this violet right here is kind of merging, you know, kind of, I think kind of, you know, in a nice harmonious way with the greens down there. This violet right here and green are a really good combination. You don't physically mix them together, but just kind of displayed next to each other, it's they go really well with each other. But you also see that kind of in nature too, and you know, nature really knows what it's doing in terms of you know, harmony, visual harmony goes. So I kind of cluster this around a little bit in here. You know, I don't like space each little dot like perfectly, you know, apart from each other. Okay, I think we can stand to go a little bit more violet. This one's a little bit of a darker one, and this was a, you know, the 0.7 millimeter. And I'll just kind of roughly place it in the same areas that I just did with the other one. You say, well, hey, there's bluebells, you know, how come it's violet like that? Well, when you look at a lot of photographs, I don't live in an area with a bunch of like a carpeted bluebells, but, you know, when I look at photographs, it seems like most of the scenes, you know, the photographs that I've seen, it's kind of a little more of a violet tinge. Some of them are a little bit more bluish tone, though. So that being said, let's add in some blue in here. But see, it's kind of like bringing this whole like forested floor to life in terms of this carpet of color, spring color. Okay, let's add in some white, and I'll use this kind of for, some highlighting in here. Kind of going on the side of the tree facing the lighter area. One of the things I like to do on my trees is I kind of make this little light area on my trunks like this. And because I don't want to work around it when I'm coloring my pieces, I just go back in later on with my white paint pen and I'll draw those tree trunks right back in there again. I mean, I can see the tree trunks. Now, some of them I just kind of make up and I add a trunk in there like that, but so like tree trunk right there, how it really kind of stands out. And these ones down here, maybe this one I'll have some trunk kind of showing through like that. All right, so there's our kind of color and textural statement as far as like crisp, color and highlights and whatever, wildflowers. Okay, now let's add in some element of soft lighting. It's not highlighting, but it's kind of lighting, and it's also kind of atmospherics and texture with the use of some white pigment ink applied in a very dry brush light touch. Okay, so let's go with, for a minute there, I thought I forgot to hit record again after I paused. Okay, dabbing in some white pigment ink here. Okay, my pigment ink pad is like a medium dry, okay? So don't go like this on yours. If it's like super, super juicy, if you don't use it too often, it's probably going to be fairly wet. And you just start applying it in your lighter areas, okay? Like that. So that's why I kind of retain some white of the paper so that I can kind of add some of this in here like this. See, this is a lighter area down here. And see, as I'm kind of tapping very lightly, and I don't get anything sometimes with like 10 taps, okay? That's kind of like what you want, though. It's like when you start doing about 20 taps like that, you start to see something a little bit. No, maybe that's too much, too many taps. And you can ink up and then go in here again. But just, you want to be able to get the feel of it. It's kind of like slowly adding in that. And see, you have that mist right there. But a lot of people, every time they do this to begin with, no one's kind of familiar with adding like a 1% version of a certain color they're doing, okay? But that's kind of what you're doing with this. You're going like, maybe it's a 0.5%, I don't know, 0.1%, so that when you tap it 10 times, you get like a 1% addition of that hue down there. But that's how you get that mist. So it's supposed to look real kind of light and airy and misty, not like a glob of white paint. So think about it like you're adding kind of like a makeup to, this scene. You know, you're not doing like a cold pack like clown makeup or something like that, but you know, it's just like a light, you know, whatever foundation. You're just building up like a very light addition of something. But look at the atmospherics in there like that. Okay, let's bring some of that same kind of mist right in here too, I think, or down here next to the stream like this. So you can kind of barely see it, right? I don't know if you can see it at all. Okay, now you can see a lot of that, so I added a little bit too much. So I'm just going to wipe it off like that and just build it up nice and gradually. I had a little bit of a blob of ink on one side of my cotton ball, but you just kind of wipe it off and start over again. But see this right here? See how it's kind of starting to become a little bit more illuminated? When I say yeah, you're doing like 20 to 40 taps, you know, it takes like, you know, I don't know, 15 seconds or something like that. It's not like it, you know, it takes minutes to do like one area, okay? You just kind of slowly build it up a little bit. And this dries a lot darker looking than what it looks like when it's been freshly applied. So you can apply a little bit too much and then just kind of wait for it, you know, to start setting up and just see if that's too much that you've added. Because you can always remove it or you can add more in there. Let's add a little bit around this tree trunk right here. Having some of this kind of mist rolling in. Look at that trunk like that. Look how fun that is right there. It's this low-lying fog. Now, it's a little bit too much right there, so I just keep tapping it and, you know, yeah, let's remove some of that. I got a big glob of it somewhere on my cotton ball here. So you kind of keep it, have a tight cotton ball applicator, okay? And then dab it down. Don't have it too wide, and you'll have a little bit more control over it. Yeah, okay, removing some like that. See this kind of fog kind of rolling in like that? It's, again, it's at the base of these trees like this. I'll leave this one crisps, you know, so that we have a little bit of a kind of a play in textural contrast against one another. So I don't put it over everything. So isn't this kind of fun? You have this kind of light coming from in front, in back of, and in front of your objects now. So it's like you're enveloping them. You're like, you know, it's like a hug of light, you know. It's like that lighting is just kind of coming around our objects and it just kind of, you know, it's like caressing them or something. All right, let's put a little bit more right in here. It's like you're adding light to a scene, you know. You're introducing light in certain areas. See these trees up here? Let's put some of this on some of those trees like this, like that little cluster of them there. So maybe some of them look like they're a lot farther back than the others that are darker. See that? So we suddenly changed the distant areas of this one stamp right here. See this tree right here? It's darker up top all over it. Let me just see what adding a little bit to one side of that tree might look like. Something like that. And you can tell kind of how little is on here, you know, from the soft kind of application of it. But look at that tree now. It looks like it's a little more three-dimensional now. So it's like a little bit soft, a little bit crisp, a little bit soft again right here. This would actually make for a really great reflection card if I add a piece of silver foil down here. Okay, I don't know why every time I go here I add a big blob. So again, you just kind of manipulate it and wipe it off, or you can wipe it off completely and start over in this area. Look how great that looks. So if this is a reflection card, you can even do it in gold down here. you know, and there's that cabin kind of, you know, this would look like a pond down here. You know, card opening up like that. I don't know, I might make this into a reflection card. That looks pretty good. Or pretty fun. Huh. Alright, so there you go like that. Yeah. It's a little bit sticky and tacky right in the alcohol ink area. But I'll put up some spray fixative over the top of this. And like I said, I might just make this into a reflection card. I'm not sure. I think it would look pretty cool that way. Try to get that glare off of there. Here. Oh. Yes. Gotta raise the edges like this a little bit. Yeah, there we go. No edge glare on there. All right, so that is your cabin in the woods right there, colored. And I think I'll probably do another video with it. I have a feeling I'm going to make this one into a reflection card, so I'd probably just darken in the edge of this slightly. I don't know, maybe. Doesn't need to be, I guess. And I'll stamp some additional things in the foreground, but I don't know. I'll see. But reflection cards are a good way to pretty much just double all of your efforts up there, just with one like mirrored area down below, and it's like, you know, twice the size, twice the scene, you know, with half the effort, you know, just formatting it into, like I said, that reflection card format. So, all right. So, anyways, there's your springtime little meadow, you know, cabin in the forest or whatever, in the woods, meadow, with the forest floor and meadow kind of alive in wildflowers. So it adds quite a bit of kind of visual excitement to the scene by adding those little types of elements like that down there. If it's a snowy type of scene or something like that where there's no, you know, wildflowers or anything like that, then these little dots like this over like a snowy terrain, you know, blues or something like that, could be like shimmering snow in the winter time. So you can still have those same types of little touches like that, but it just represents something else. And of course, you're not doing it in you know, like wildflower colors or something like that. If it just represents kind of glistening, sparkly snow too. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed this video, hope you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button.